Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started.
Morning.
I'm Scott Jameson with Bartlett Tree Experts, also the Vice Chair of the Tree Care Industry Association Board. This is actually a very special introduction I'm doing this morning. We're not doing anything like this any other session, so we get to enjoy something pretty cool here. I'm really happy to introduce our next speaker, somebody I personally respect. I've listened to, like many of you, for many, many years. But last winter at our winter management meeting in Hawaii, we present the Chair Award, which is one of the highest honors that the association presents. And last year, our honoree was not able to accept it personally in Hawaii. I'm not sure that's a pretty nice place to go. But what's really fun is our next speaker is our 2009 TCI Chair Award recipient, Dr. J.Raupp. So I'm really pleased to be able to present this.
Thank you.
Let me just say a few things for those that you don't know. Our industry, most of our members are owners or operators of tree care companies or associate members that sell things to us. But there are many members that contribute to our association. And this is what J.Raupp has done over the years. He's a professor and extension specialist at the University of Maryland in College Park. What he does is he develops and implements IPM programs for managed landscapes. The goal is to improve sustainability of landscapes systems through the conservation and enhancement of biological diversity with special emphasis on natural enemy communities. He's worked closely with arborists in the tree care industry for more than 30 years. His extension publications, programs provide training on the theory and practice of IPM. He has more than 200 publications and has made more than 750 professional and extension presentations. Really?
Yep.
That's pretty awesome.
I lied.
His Bug of the Week website is an information source on the natural history of insects and one of the most hit websites in the viral world, so go check that out. We honor him now for his, not only for his numerous accomplishments on the national stage, but also for his specific contributions to TCIA. And this is why the Chair Award was presented to Mike. He has produced and provided the industry-specific seminars with workshops at TCI Expo. Many of our industry best plant healthcare technicians and managers have attended his programs. But what's really neat, what he's done is he's been willing to stay after presentations. If you've ever listened to Mike's talks, he'll stay after and talk to you all night, all day, and he'll do that again after this presentation. He's always accessible. If you call him, you email him, you're going to get a response from Mike. That's just how he operates, and he's really contributed to our industry. His most recent accomplishment, and this is something you want to check out, is that he's allowed TCIA, our association, to become the publisher of something called Managing Insects and Mites on Woody Plants, an IPM approach. TCIA helped him take this publication from a black and white extension book and turn it into a 198-page industry standard, an industry standard guidebook with 80 color photos. His book now addresses 145 different pests while also teaching plant health care and IPM approach to pest control. The book is also the centerpiece of our association, TCI's association's Tree Care Academy PhD training program. This is the cornerstone of our process there. So it's my pleasure to give the Chair's Award to Dr. J.Raupp. And after the presentation this afternoon, we encourage you to go down to the membership booth. Well, he'll be signing his book. So thank you. Let me give this award, take a photo, and then we'll get to the presentation.
Well, that was totally unexpected. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Congratulations.
Hey, thank you, man. That's fantastic. Wow. I didn't know I did that stuff, you know. Actually, I didn't really. I just put it down. People say, well, what do you do? And I just say I give all these talks and write, you know, articles and things. They keep inviting me nice places to talk to nice people. So it really is a pleasure to be here. And I want to thank the program committee. Scott, thanks so much. That was very, very kind and generous, if untrue. Pleasure to be here today, as always. Love TCIA. Great meeting. How's it been so far for you? Pretty good? Learned some stuff? It's always fun to follow Bruce. You know, he's always got cool, zany ideas that are working and fantastic. So, great time for the industry, I think. I'm gonna talk about a fairly dark subject today: invasive species. Yikes! These guys are creepy. Can you guys see this all right? Is this projecting, or shall we try to dim house lights just a tad? What do you think? Looking good? Yeah, why don't we tune it down a little bit? Some people, I noticed, I think I saw Peter Becker in here. He was looking sleepy. Maybe he skipped out, but I want Pete to be able to nap if it's too bright. So if we dim those lights, that'll be great. The other thing I'd say is that a little better? Is that too dark?
Good.
Too dark. Good. How about that? Perfect? Okay, I think this is okay. What do you guys think? Good? All right, let's roll. I thought we did that. Are we not? You can hear me. That's okay. Hello, hello? Nope. No mic. Hello, hello? Huh? You got a sound level back there?
Those lights were off before you hit these.
Oh.
No, the other one.
It's a two-mic talk.
It's a two-mic talk. Where's the other mic?
You're so famous, we have to put two mics on you.
Oh, I see.
This is for the people.
Okay, got it. Because I'm going to wander. Is that okay? Absolutely. Oh, guys, I've never done two mics before at one time.
Well, that was off when these were on, so I don't know.
Yeah, let's...
I'm not touching anything else, and that's how it is.
Let's just go with that. Is that okay, guys?
Yep.
Okay. Ooh, baby. All right. Woo. Mic the mic. Okay. Golly, I hope I don't strangle myself. If somebody sees me choking, Bob, if I start to choke or something, if these cords get wrapped around me, like untangle me, okay? Thank you. Okay, if you guys have questions as I go along, please feel free to ask, okay? I hate waiting until the end. Don't you? No? Well, yeah. Well, if you have questions, just go ahead and ask them. Is that fair enough? Good. Okay. I'm going to start off with economic data. This is going to seem bizarre, but the point I want to make, well, you know, it's about jobs, isn't it, guys? Okay, well, that's what we're going to talk about. It's about the economy. What this does is plot out the billions of dollars in imports to this country, okay? And if you'll notice here, we're kind of poking along at a pretty slow rate until the middle 1980s. Now the import dollars in this country have become exponential. Does everybody see that? Kind of the hockey stick effect? Okay, so basically, and what happened in the middle 80s that was, that changed the shape of that graph up there? Does anybody know? Yeah. It was the trade agreements, exactly. So we became largely a importing country. Now, the important thing that I want to point out for you guys, this has direct implications to what you're going to do every day for the rest of your lives, okay? Because what happens is things get to this country in containers, don't they? What do you think's inside those big containers? Little containers. And what's inside little containers? Good. Bugs. So now if we plot out on the next graph the number of new species of borers, wood-boring beetles, shot-hole borers, that's what this is. See how right about here at about 1980-ish, this also goes exponential, just like it did in here. What does this tell you? What's the implication of this? We're shipping not just borers, but lots of bugs. I just used the borer example. What's the other implication? Now, for old guys like me, it doesn't really matter much. But for young guys in this room and gals, what does it mean for you?
More work.
It is your job security. That's right. Absolutely. We're going to be in gravy forever after. About 10 years ago, we were sitting around thinking we'd solve gypsy moth and hemlock woolly adelgid and stuff like that. We were trying to figure out, make up stuff to do. By golly, now we know that we're going to be busy forever. Now, they aren't really that big. You can see in the palm of my hand about how big they are. But this is a big problem. It's a big problem out here as well. This is the guy I want to start with because this is the most egregious borer we have right now. This is going to change the shape of things. Emerald ash borer is a native to Asia. We're not exactly sure if it came from China, Japan, or Korea, but one way or another, it got here. Now, the first detections were made in Michigan, near Detroit, again, a port city. And that's where a lot of these invasives are going to show up first, is near either water ports or inland ports. All right, so here's where it started. Basically, we think it began to move upstate as people move firewood on hunting trips. Like when you guys go hunting or fishing, or when you go camping, don't you kind of load up the trunk first with firewood? Because it's always Friday, you always get to the campground, and what's it doing? Raining. So you bring firewood. That's what I do, okay? Now, on the way out, when you're leaving, you all pick up your firewood and take it home with you, don't you? No. Well, neither did the guys in Michigan. So as a result of this, it spread up the peninsula pretty quick. All right, here in Pennsylvania, it was detected. I met the guy who found the infestation along the turnpike, the first infestation, which is back here. And basically, he had stopped at a rest area, went out and kind of looked around and said, boy, that sure looks like emerald ash borer. He was from Bowling Green. He was their groundskeeper out there, and by golly, it was. The other infestation you have further in is apparently at a tool handle factory. I think this is the story here, that a tool handle factory that was importing ash for tool handles. So this baby's going to move around. We got ours in Maryland. The other infestation, I'll talk about that one in some detail. But let's talk a little bit about what this guy does. Has anybody seen an EAB infestation yet? Pretty impressive, isn't it? It's pretty awesome what happens. This is a picture my colleague Cliff Sadoff out in Purdue sent me. But all the dead trees you see there are ashes. I think that's an oak in the foreground, and he must have been at McDonald's. I don't know what that green stuff is. What is that green stuff anyway? Is that lettuce or something? Must have been eating a sandwich. I don't know. But the ultimate outcome of this is if a quarantine and eradication program is put in place, as it was in Maryland and other parts of the country, those trees are simply going to be cut down and chipped into 1-inch chips before they get shipped off to become mulch somewhere. So this is a nasty type situation when it arises. What it's done, I haven't updated this, we're probably closer to 40 million dead ash trees now, and we're up to, I think, 16 or 17 states. It's incredibly disruptive to the trade. Nursery guys who had ash in the ground simply can't sell that stuff now. You can't move materials around when you do takedowns. It all has to go to marshalling yards to be chipped. So it's a real nuisance, and it's basically costing us tens of millions of dollars every year, and that figure is going to go way up, okay? For Baltimore, for my friends that are here from Maryland, we got some Marylanders here today, I'll bet. No? Nobody from Maryland? I guess I don't have friends in Maryland anymore. Okay, good. Hey, nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Anyway, what's going to happen to Baltimore is going to get smacked down. There are about 6 million ash trees in Baltimore Metro. Now, how much does it cost to take down a tree? Big tree in a city. Don't act dumb. You guys are arborists. How much does it cost to take down a big tree in a city? Okay, 1,000, couple thousand may be good. And how much does it cost to replace a tree after you've taken one down? 500 or 600. So we might be talking, what do you think, a couple grand? Something like this to get the job done? Add three more zeros to that $6 million figure, and now we're talking about what we're talking about here in Baltimore. That's what we're looking at. That's $6 billion, I think, right? I know it just sounds like a small AIG bailout, but trust me, for the city of Baltimore and the taxpayers in Maryland, this is going to be substantial. And where's the money going to come from? Yeah, we wish. No, well, one way or another, where's it coming from? Even if it has to pass through Obama, where's it coming from? It's coming from you. Good. I just want you to understand that that's what the connection is. Very good. Okay, so this is not good for any of us. Let's talk about life cycle very quickly for those of you who are unfamiliar. The larvae overwinter under the bark. Adults emerge in late May. Mid to late May. I'm going to push that up a little bit. They're going to emerge about the time that black locust blooms. Okay? So in Maryland, when our black locust is in bloom, which is usually about the first week of May, and with climate change, it's shifting forward all the time, that's when we're going to see the adults fly. So if you're going after this thing with a residual, and we'll talk about chemicals in a minute here, if you're going after this with the residual chemicals, that's the time you want to have your onyx or your astro on the bark of that tree, okay, at adult flight. They're going to feed, mate, lay eggs onto the tree. The eggs are going to hatch into little larvae that then bore down through the wood and feed in the cambium. Now, this is the problem, isn't it? We have some other borers that aren't nearly as egregious as these ones, that feed in other tissues. But trees grow from 3 places, don't they? Where are the 3 meristematic tissues on a woody plant? This is like a little quiz, a little pop quiz. Where are they? Tips of shoots, tips of roots, and cambium. The reason this one is so deadly, it feeds in the cambium. If you kill the cambium, you kill the tree. It's as simple as that. And that's what it does. It feeds back and forth through the cambium, makes serpentine galleries, and effectively girdles the tree. Now, there can be a lot of those things in there. I've seen a square meter of bark with 100 larvae developing in it. So this is an incredible kind of damage to the tree, and these guys kill trees very rapidly. Now, in terms of the things you're going to look for, ashes in general struggle in urban sites, don't they? It's not all unusual, I think, to see an ash tree with a little bit of discoloration in the canopy, a little chlorosis, maybe a little dieback, right? Little epicormic growth. There are a lot of things that can cause this, but when you see epicormic growth, when you see dieback, or when you see off-color foliage, I want a little light bulb to go off in your head and say, okay, look, I got to go look at that thing more closely. Again, thinning of the canopy. When you start to see the canopy, a general canopy failure, it's like a second light bulb going off. All right? When you see woodpeckers, that's when I want a big flag to go up. The woodpeckers know. How do they know? They're hungry. And how long have they been working on this project? 60 million years. They've been working at finding these borers for 60 million years. They're much better at it than we are. Okay, trust me. So when you see woodpeckers working ash trees, all right, that's when the other big red flag should go off, that there's something different about this, okay? So listen to Woody Woodpecker, all right? Right? The other thing I want to show you here, which is a bit unusual, that I don't see as a symptom on other trees. Remember I said they attack the cambium? Think about it for a minute. So your tree is trying to add girth, right, as it grows, and it does it by cambial cell division. That's how a tree gets bigger. What happens if the cambium dies and the rest of the cambium is growing? What do you wind up with? Vertical bark cracks. That's very unusual. For things like banded ash clearwing, which is the other big native pest you'll see in ash trees, you don't see bark splits. You'll see galleries pushing Frats, but you don't see bark splits. So when you start to see vertical bark splits, that's another pretty good clue that you're looking at something different. Okay, so that's what you're going to be looking for there. Fair enough? Now, once we're at this stage, the rest of it kind of gets easier. When we actually see the emergence holes are going to be D-shaped. They're going to be shaped like the letter D, because this is a flat-headed borer, just like bronze birch borer. Leaves a D-shaped exit hole. Whereas our clearwing borers, our banded ash clearwing or our lilac ash borer, which are the other common ones in landscapes, they're going to leave an oval or a round hole. Okay? The other thing we'll see with the clearwing borers is frass underneath the tree. As these guys feed, they will clear that hole. They'll push the frass out. Do you guys know what frass is, by the way? What is it? It's not sawdust. Saws make sawdust. It's bug crap, thank you. Okay, we're being polite here today. Yes, it's bug crap. Okay, so what we call the banded ash clearwing a frass pusher because it pushes its frass out. The emerald ash borer is what we call a frass packer. It sounds bad. But what it does is it packs the frass in behind it so you don't see the frass. So if you see frass, is that good or bad? It's good. If you don't see frass, that's bad. Okay? Do with that what you will. The other thing that we see, as the clearwing borers emerge, they leave behind a pupal case. So you'll see that little pupal case, and if it's the ash lilac borer, you're going to see that in May, June maybe, April, depending where you are. If it's the banded ash clearwing, that's a fall emerger. So you're going to see it September or October. So that's a good indicator. Again, lilac ash borer is the spring guy. Banded ash clearwing is the fall guy. There are two different clearwings that get in there. Good enough? Okay. Again, the D-shaped exit hole is what you're looking for. When you peel the bark, you're going to get serpentine galleries. Now, there are a couple native borers that will make serpentine galleries, but they don't ever reach the magnitude you'll see with your emerald ash borer. So when you've got serpentine galleries, when you peel your bark, it's pretty good confirmation. Whereas with our banded ash clearwing, you're going to get kind of a feeding patch. It's going to be linear or an open area in there. Fair enough? Okay, well, can we save our ashes? I don't know. They're in trouble right now for a variety of reasons. Climate change is one. We plant them in silly places for another. We over-mulch them. We put them in, an ash tree is supposed to get that big. Restricted root zones. You got all kinds of problems in urban areas with these babies. Okay, I'm going to briefly tell you about my experience here in Maryland, our EAB project over there. EAB came to Maryland with a shipment of, an illegal shipment of ash trees out of Michigan. What happened is we had a guy named Ed who owns Ed's Plant World. And Ed had a deal with somebody, as I understand it, maybe I think in Tennessee, to buy some ash trees. Well, the guy in Tennessee said he knew somebody up in Michigan that could get a great price on ashes. So the ashes were shipped out of a federal quarantine zone to Maryland in 2003. That's what established our infestation. Okay, and from there we've kind of been trying to figure out how quickly they've been moving. That's what my particular research is. How fast it moves and what we should tell our people over there. Now, one of the ways we keep track of this thing, and on your way driving around here, you'll see these funny purple traps in trees. You guys ever seen those? Those are the Barney traps. So named for that big, silly purple dinosaur named Barney, because they're the same color. Okay? And for some reason known only to Barney and the emerald ash borer, they attract the emerald ash borer. So we can use these things to sample and keep track of where they are. So you'll see a lot of these things spread around the Northeast. We use this, again, not as a control tactic, but as a monitoring technique. That's what the Barney traps are for. They're for monitoring to find out exactly where these infestations are, because they're very hard to detect at low densities, and that's the density we want to work at. The other element of my project that we're working on right now is with the USDA, we're releasing parasitoids. Okay, there have been several parasitoids cleared for release in the US. One is an egg parasite, this thing called oobius. This attacks the eggs. There's a tetrasticus, there's a easy for me to say, Spathius. These are guys that attack the larvae under the bark of the tree. And we're starting to see these guys basically take, so releases have been made here in the Midwest and also in Maryland, and we're getting recoveries the next year, which is a good sign. All right, so we kind of got our fingers crossed that maybe these things are going to grab a foothold and actually help reduce the populations in natural areas. The big problem is not going to be managing emerald ash borer, in a corporate park or in somebody's yard. You guys are going to do that just fine. The big problem is going to be what happens out in natural settings, where we can't get in and inject trees with imidacloprid. So that's, I think, where these guys are going to help us out. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Okay. One of the hopes here, again, and I don't want to get into this tangle about native exotic plants. That's for another day. But if we looked at this, what do you think? If we had native ashes like green in Pennsylvania and various cultivars of native ash trees, and if we had an exotic ash that we brought in like Manchurian, who would live and who would die? How many think the American ashes would live? I'm not sure. How many think the exotic ash would live in the face of this? Good. How many don't know? How many don't care? You don't think either, huh? Okay. Well, you got to care. Ash is good. Okay. All right. Well, this is what we learn. So basically the reason it works this way is the Asian ashes, again, have had this long period of association. They've been evolving with this particular pest for millions of years. So in its native range, the ash tree basically has learned ways to fight that borer and kill it. Okay? Our American ashes are naive. They've never seen this thing before. They don't have evolved defenses against it. So when a new invasive pest comes to our country, oftentimes our plants simply can't fight this thing off. And that's the reason we're seeing so much mortality with our native ash trees. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's this lack of evolutionary history between these two that's causing the problem right now. We see the same things with our native borer, a closely related species. Does anybody know what this is? Bronze birch borer. If I pose the same question, we'll see, this is again a little pop quiz. If I pose you the same question, who lives and who dies? With bronze birch borer, do our native birches live or do exotic birches live? How many think native live? How many think exotic live? How many don't know? Fair. It's the same deal. We originally thought by importing birches from Asia and Europe that they would be resistant, and they looked good for a couple years. But at the end of these trials, this is Dan Herms's work, all the exotic ones were dead. For the same reason, there was no evolutionary history with our native borer and these exotic plants. So when we were brought in the exotic plant, our native borer said, "Ooh, baby, you've never seen me before." Okay? "You've never seen the likes of me." And it was Katie bar the door. Okay, so always keep that in mind. Now, one of the questions I'm interested in, and perhaps you are too, is how fast it moves. Okay, how fast is this thing spreading? So using the historical data from Maryland, we were able to plot out from the time it was first introduced in Ed's plant world, that's the 0 point, and then we measured how quickly it was moving away from that introduction site, and that's what we learned. That basically, and the one I want to bring your attention to is the red line, the maximum rate of spread, which is about, what does that say, about 1.37. It's the slope of that line, that red line. I can't read it from here. Let me check it. Okay, 1.37. Okay, that's the slope. That's how fast. And that's in kilometers a year. So it's moving 1.37 kilometers a year away from this site. How many miles is that about, roughly? Just a tad less. It's about 0.9. So it's moving more or less a mile a year away from this entry site. And this is an important piece of information. Okay, here's why. Because we can now use that piece of information to project how long it's going to take to get like places like the District of Columbia or up to Baltimore, Maryland. As long as we don't disturb this system, right now with the quarantine, with our educational efforts, when we find ash trees, we chop them down. We try to put out little fires as they go along. We've got this thing at about a mile a year. So we still have a lot of time left in a lot of places. Okay? The implication of this, yeah, we do. The implication of this is that we can, you know, what I'm telling people up in Baltimore is you really don't have to be putting on emerald ash borer sprays right now. Maybe when this baby's about 5 miles away, it's a good time to start selling these jobs. Or 10 miles, I think Deb McCullough saying about 10 miles, but certainly not when it's 48 miles. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. The other thing is that this data tells me is this year in the District of Columbia, we've got emerald ash borer. They don't know it yet because it's very hard to detect at low levels, but I guarantee it's there. I was looking at a data set yesterday and it showed it just outside of the district line, so I'm betting anything that it really is in the district now too. Okay, that's a lot to look at, forget that. What I want to get to is the meat here. I brought along some of these publications for you. There are lots of good tools to manage this thing. We've got the neonicotinoid compounds, and I'll talk more about them in this afternoon's talk, but things like imidacloprid, dinotefuran, these are all things that can go on either as injections into the soil or through the bark, and the efficacy levels are very high on these compounds. Bidrin works really well too. In terms of wet sprays, again, there are two ways to approach it. You either get your systemic material in there and kill the borers when they're in the cambium, right? Fortunately for us, this beetle also feeds on the foliage. It also feeds on the leaves. Before she produces eggs, the female has to feed on leaves. So if you have imidacloprid up in the canopy, when she feeds on those leaves, she's going to be intoxicated and die. That's cool, right? It's really cool. The other way to go about this is as we would with any other borer, and simply lay down your good residual bark insecticides, things like your bifenthrin, your onyx, or your permethrin, your astro, and get that on the bark about the time the adults are coming in, right? Good enough. Do they work? Well, you tell me. What do you think? I would find that acceptable, wouldn't you? Now, this is something you could sell to your client. Okay, merit and no merit. Simple as that. Some of Dave Schmidtly's nice work. Okay, now the other one we want to worry about is this one. For those of you unfamiliar, that's the Bromo Seltzer Tower in Baltimore. Some people find this image disturbing because the beetle has a red eye. Did you see that? I find it disturbing is because she's ovipositing. She's laying eggs on the Bromo Seltzer Tower. Oh my God. How despicable. How just rude. Okay, anyway. The problem here is with this invasive species is that it was actually first detected in New York City. It was later detected in Chicago. You know, they think they may have eradicated it out there. We're still looking really hard. But it's been picked up in two major areas of the country. Since the original infestation in New York, they also found it in Jersey. Let me see if I have. Here's the. I believe this is the Massachusetts, and this was the crusher in 2008 when it turned up just outside of Boston, New Worcester. This is right on the border of sugar maple country. One of the favorite hosts of this thing is sugar maples. So this is going to be an absolute disaster if it moves out into the sugar maple production areas. Okay, so not good, not good. Here's the two active zones. We still got a pretty good hot spot in New York and another one over in Jersey where they're trying to eradicate this thing. Now again, at this point in time, this is not one that you're going to deal with because when they find new infestations, they're still tossing up quarantine eradication programs. But if this should get out of the bottle, if this genie should get out of the bottle, then this will become something you'll have to deal with as well. Okay, and this one I think is going to be in some ways a little harder. Emerald ash borer is pretty easy to kill even though it flies far. This one is a big animal. Okay, that baby is that big from the tip of the antenna to the tip of the leg. It has very unusual damage. So if you see leaves with the center eaten out and you see that kind of funny bark stripping going on, there should be, again, this little light bulb going off in your head that this is something you've not seen before. I've never seen a beetle do that kind of injury as we see on the bottom right. So if you get samples in, you got maple trees with dieback or sweet gums or something, and you see funny defoliation down the center of a vein or coarse bark stripping, you know, you might want to have a closer look. What the female does is she digs what we call an egg niche. She'll turn around, she'll gnaw this little hole in the bark, and then she turns around and she dumps eggs in it. Okay, the egg niche. That's the egg. The egg hatches into the larva, and that's a big hunker. I mean, if you had a mess of those, they'd be good eating. Look how big that baby is. They probably taste really good, too. I bet they taste like shrimp. Yeah? Huh? Chicken, you think? I bet if you sauteed those, you know, with a little olive oil and mushrooms and stuff, right? That's got to be good eating. But they're big hunkers. And as I said, the adult's large. It's a very cool looking beetle. Apparently, the story I heard is that the infestation in Worcester was found when one of those beetles landed in some lady's hair. And she said, oh my, that's a big beetle in my hair. And they eventually got the thing identified. And you know, that infestation looks like somebody took a half-track with 50 caliber machine guns and shot the tops out of those trees up there. I don't know how we missed it for so long, but if you're seeing a lot of big damage in maple trees, go have a closer look. Here's a box elder. Again, what they'll do is they'll feed for a while in the cambium, girdle it, and then they dive down into the sapwood and heartwood, and they'll tunnel through there for a while too. Okay. Now, what can we do? Well, in Chicago, what they did in the eradication zone is they simply chopped down the trees and replanted with resistant species. So that's one strategy. But this strategy we've heard before. This should sound vaguely familiar to some of you arborists, eh? We had something back in the day for you youngsters here. Back in the day, there was this thing called Dutch elm disease that came through. Does anybody recall that one? Remember that? Remember that? And what was the lesson of Dutch elm disease? What we're going to do? Does anybody remember? Huh? More another monoculture. Yeah, if you read your textbooks, they'll say, well, diversify the urban forest, right? That's the solution to this. Well, I got curious about this because I spend a fair bit of time out in the urban forest poking around. I was walking around the urban forest in lots of places. I said, man, this just doesn't look diverse. So what I did was to take a survey from about 12 cities east of the Mississippi, and this is what I learned. What we did is we took a forest that was elm trees, and we planted it in maple. Is that awesome? We're so smart, aren't we? Doggone. And guess what was the second most common one? Ash trees. Very good. And then some oak trees and honey locusts and elms and Bradford pears. That was a good idea. And sycamores and tilly and stuff like that. So, well, what's the implication of this? Well, right now, in terms of my calculations, now if we overlay the host of these two egregious pests, that's what you got. The red bars are the Asian longhorned beetle hosts. The green bar is the emerald ash borer host. So right now, about half of our urban forest is susceptible to just these two borers. So how many people in here are under the age of 40? Please raise your hands. You young folks, please try to diversify the urban forest. The palette is big, trust me. There are lots of trees that could be planted. Don't just plant maple trees and ash trees anymore when you get your chance. I know some of you get to make these decisions, so try to make it more diverse. I know there'll be pressure to do otherwise, but please try to make it more diverse. Now, the other graph I want to show you here, you see the two yellow dots? This is the Asian longhorn beetle introduction sites in New York and Chicago, the yellow stars. What are all the red dots? The red dots are where somebody in a warehouse has opened up a container and there was the borer. What does that tell you looking at that map? Remember what I said, ports of entry is one, but what I said right up front, this is only a matter of time. This is just a probability game before another container comes in, somebody misses it as the container is opened and out they fly. Okay, so job security, yes, a matter of time, which is not the good thing, but trust me, we're not going to see an end to these problems. These things are in the literature. The preferred things, as I said, are mostly maples. They do hit some other things. So the host list on this one is pretty broad. I want to switch gears now into a newer one. We haven't seen too much about this. Has anybody had to deal with Cyrex wood wasp yet? Okay, let's go through this one briefly. This is a nasty one. This is the #1 pest of pine trees in the world. The #1 pest in pine plantations in the world. Okay? It's a horntail. It belongs to this family called sawflies. The adult female has a horn on her tail. Aren't we clever with our names? But so does the larva, okay? And that's what bores in the wood. Now the female, when she finds a susceptible pine tree, what she'll do is she'll drill down into it, and the first thing she injects is called toxic mucus. Now, that doesn't sound good. When you're injected with toxic mucus, it can't be good. What the toxic mucus does is shuts down the defensive pathways in the tree. Trees defend themselves through vascular-based defenses. That's how trees defend themselves from borers. So if you ever wound a pine tree, what's the first thing you see? Pitch tube, right? That tree is trying to physically force that invader right out. What the toxic mucus does is shuts down the canopy of the tree, so it can't move moisture through it anymore. It can't generate resin pressure, so it disables the tree's defenses. The second thing it injects is a fungus, all right, a fungal pathogen, which then invades the lignin and cellulose. It's an amylosterium fungus that can actually break down lignin and make the host more suitable for the next thing that gets dumped in, and she shoots in eggs that hatch into those larvae. Okay, that's why this is so debilitating, and that's why these trees can collapse very quickly. Now, the key you're going to look for here is the pitch tubes, the resin canals, okay? As the tree bleeds, where the larvae have bored their way in and actually will emerge from later. And also, you can look for the round exit holes. Okay? Again, I mentioned that it has an amylosterium fungus associated with it. This is transported by the wasp itself. Here was the original entry site, okay? On Oswego, New York. Again, a port city. Probably something came through the St. Lawrence Seaway. Something got unpacked there. Out it jumped. All right, this was the infestation. The first year I think it was found was either 03 or 04. Here's where they find it by 05. Again, you can see how quickly it's spreading. And the miraculous thing, here it is. What's that map say, 06? Here are the detections in 06. Now, we're in Pennsylvania, aren't we? How many guys are from Pennsylvania here? Huh? You guys can be so proud because look, see how right along that border with Pennsylvania? You guys just said, no damn horntails getting in this state. Just drew the line and you stuck with it, didn't you? So cool. Right? That's why Paterno has this luck. It's just these hard Pennsylvania coal miner guys just... Okay. Well, when they started doing surveys in Pennsylvania, they found that it jumped the border, and of course, and now it's pretty far down in the state. Here's the most updated map I could find, the 2010. But the thing I want to point out here, gang, look at this. First detected in 2004. So between 2004, in 6 years, it went that far, right? And golly, how the heck did it get over here? Look at that. So, you know, let's say this is more characteristic. I'm telling my guys down in Maryland, if we go simply like this, that in another 6 years, I wouldn't be surprised to see this baby in Baltimore. Okay?
In that last screen,
yeah.
That wave sort of down into...
That's where the traps are. All those dots on there are where they're trapping for this thing along the advancing front. Okay? So this one's coming your way. Now, the upside, if there's an upside on this one tends to like stress trees and over mature trees, which is good. All right, so tree vigor is going to be very important here, maintaining good tree vigor, because it kind of selects out over mature trees and it'll tackle the ones that are a little bit weaker. It likes to go after weaker trees first. The bad thing is it disperses very rapidly. Okay, so if you've got big trees, and what I'm worried about when it hits not just our neck of the woods, but the real susceptibility is when it gets in the southern pine forest. When it hits the big loblollies and stuff going through the south there, it's really going to be a nasty situation. Yes, sir?
Where do they typically attack?
Up the entire bole of the tree. Yep, it's like looking at a southern pine beetle attack. It can be anywhere along the bole. Okay? The mating takes place up in the canopy, but they actually lay eggs all up and down the bole of the tree. Again, our best our best tool here for the time being is going to be to try to get rid, and in plantations what they do is they thin the plantations to keep the trees vigorous so they don't overcrowd and shade each other. That's how they're managing in pine plantations. There's also a nematode that attacks this. So in the pine plantations they rely on biological control to collapse this thing. How are we going to tackle it? I don't know. We have some parasites that attack wood wasps. I'm sorry, yes, these wood wasps, horntails, so maybe those guys are going to help out. This is the nematode they've actually used in pine plantations to help control this thing. Okay? Yeah?
The pine wolf nematode?
No, God, no. That's a different thing. That's a nasty guy. This is a good guy. We've got bad guys like pine wilt that are vectored by beetles, longhorned beetles. We got this one that's beneficial. A lot of our nematodes are good guys. Okay? How we're going to deal with it, I don't know. Somebody said they've dealt with this one a little bit already. I'm going to back up here. What are you guys using on horntails? Has anybody had to treat for it up here yet in a residential account? What'd you use?
We used imidacloprid and dinutetra on both, getting 2 different instances.
And what'd you think?
We got control. We protected the other trees. By the time we first got to the first tree, it was already too late.
Okay, so the point here is an important one. We have these borers. One of the things, and it applies to this this granulate ambrosia beetle as well. When you've got heavily infested trees, the best thing to do is get the tree out of there, because now it's just a reservoir or a source for infestation of other guys. So get it out. The other way I think you'll tackle this again is with your residual bark insecticides, things like your onyx and your astro. Lay that down, and that should space maybe about 4 weeks apart. Yeah. Don't know that. No. Well, it kind of makes sense. It's logical, but I haven't seen data on it, so I can't really comment one way or the other. Okay. How are we doing time-wise, guys? What time is it?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Thank you, sir. I think we'll make it, or we'll be darn close. The other one I want to mention briefly is this devil right here. This is more of a southern pest, but it's working its way up the Mississippi along the east coast, the granulate ambrosia beetle. Okay, really nasty. This is the kind of damage it does. Again, I've seen this one primarily in trees that are under stress. It's got a big host range. Seen it in crepe myrtle, seen it in yellow wood, seen it in Styrax. Mostly multi-stem, smaller type things that are under stress. You'll see these goofy toothpicks coming out. See that? It's kind of crazy looking. Yeah? Have you seen that? Yeah? Okay. Now, I had a yellow wood that had a problem like this. Some of the interior branches were being shaded by the exterior branches, so they were under a little stress. The interior ones were being infested by this. We simply took them out, and the trees look fine. So sometimes you can interrupt this thing in a multi-stem tree simply by a kind of a sanitation pruning. Okay, followed up maybe with a residual bark insecticide. This one, again, has a fungal associate with it. Okay? Flies really early in the season. In this neck of the woods, this baby's going to be active in March or April probably. So if you're going to go after this with a residual insecticide, that's when you're coming on. Okay? And again, the 2 materials I think that are going to work best are going to be your onyx and your astro. Your permethrin and your bifenthrin. Okay? This is kind of a pessimistic judgment on this. I think there are people that, obviously if it's heavily infested, you want to get it out. But, I think if you catch this thing early enough, I know another infestation where they caught it early, they sprayed it, and that was the end of the story. Okay, so I think you can put a therapy on for this one. Very briefly, this is one you've worked with a lot, hemlock woolly adelgid. Where is it? It's coming over to this side of the hill. Okay? Here's what it looks like. Those are the ovisacs. The eggs are inside. Now, we did a lot of work on this back in the 80s using imidacloprid. And what I want to show you here is on a healthy tree, a tree that's got an intact canopy. Hi? Question?
Yeah, back to the ambrosia beetle.
Yep. Yep.
Is that an entrance or an
Yep. That's as she bores in. She pushes that frass out behind her. Good question. Look at this. With the imidacloprid, and I think these were soil drenches, Here we are out at day 816 into our third year, and we've still got excellent control. So the point I want to make here is your things like your imidacloprid and your dinotefuran are going to work just great on these things, and you're going to get multiple years of protection with a single application. Okay? So this, again, is one, I've heard clients say, well, I can't afford to do it. And you say, well, look, I'm only going to have to do it once every 3 years. So then all of a sudden now they can afford it. So think about when you market that program that you're going to get multiple year protection with it. Okay? I've had mixed results with injection systems. This was an experimental arborjet system to put it in through the bark. Gave me about a 50% control. This is some of Rich Coles' data. But again, mixed results, I think, and I don't know if if you miss the vascular trace, maybe you don't get good distribution on some of these methods, but with trunk drenches, Rich Coles found very, very excellent levels of control. So I think as long as you can get all your vascular traces, you're going to be fine with whatever you do. In some places, you're not going to be able to drench because you've got no soil, you're in between houses or whatever near water. But if you can, I think a soil drench is going to do fine here for you. Okay, you can also go after the crawlers with soap and oil. Okay, just basically showing you here that Safari works really well. Very quickly, Viburnum leaf beetle, another one. This is the adult damage. This is what the larvae do, and they right now are in an egg stage out in the field. That's how they overwinter. They chew little burrows in the bark. She lays eggs on the bark, and then she craps on them. That keeps the predators away, I guess. I don't know why else you'd crap on your kids, but that's what she does. They can cause some pretty significant damage. It's a good thing you're recording this. And basically came in first in Canada in 47, 96 in New York. Now it's spread throughout the region. So this is another one you're going to have to deal with. Good news, there are several species of viburnums that are fairly resistant to this. One of my favorite is Carlesi. The bad news, things like our dentatums are susceptible. And dentatums, as you know, is in native. So this means this will penetrate into forests and be able to hang out in forests and then jump into people's yards. Management, again, resistant varieties. If you go out right now, you can simply prune out those eggs. Problem solved. Be sure you charge $1,000 for that. And if you want to wait and squirt the larvae, there are lots of things that you can kill leaf beetles with. Okay, the last one, and this will take us to the last couple minutes. I've spent more time on this pest this year than any other insect in my career, the brown marmorated stink bug. This thing is just nuts. Okay. First started to show up in Allentown, Pennsylvania in the middle to late 90s in Allentown. Okay. It was finally confirmed by Rich Hobicke up at Cornell. Now it's in more than 20 states, all the way to California, as far south as Florida, but guess what? This is the epicenter. The mid-Atlantic region is the epicenter for this bug. Okay? It is a true bug. In other words, it has sucking mouth parts, all the other characteristics of true bugs. This is way too much to read. But basically, the adults have a beak on the underside of their body. They jam this into whatever they want except human beings, which is fortunate, or pets. But any kind of plant, any kind of fruit. They lay eggs in clusters on the leaves. The eggs hatch into those little nymphs. The nymphs then hatch, the eggs hatch. The nymphs go out and feed, as I said, on virtually anything. They really like fruits of various kind. So we originally thought this was just going to be a nuisance when they invaded people's homes in the autumn. This year they were in soybeans. This year they were in corn. This year they were on people's tomatoes, organic growers that can't spray virtually anything. They also wound up in our nurseries where they were feeding through the bark of trees. I saw maple trees with 80 per square meter on the bark. I want to show you another picture here, which isn't very good. Well, that's somebody's house. Somebody sent me that. How'd you like to have that in your attic? I've seen pictures where there are thousands of these in people's bedrooms or up in attics. But the thing I want to show you is here on Serviceberry. See that image up in the upper right? That's Serviceberry. So in the springtime, if you have clients that have fruiting trees like serviceberries, they're going to be loaded with stink bugs, and they're going to reproduce on those plants, and crab apples. And you know where they're coming in autumn? In your client's house. So what we're doing right now is we're evaluating susceptibility of different plants, and we're trying to find out which ones can serve as reproductive hosts and which ones they can't reproduce on. So now we can start to make recommendations to people that have accounts as to what they need to keep their eye on and what not to plant. Okay, so down the road, what I hope we'll be able to do is recommend a list of plants that don't support stink bug reproduction, so you can basically build a stink bug resistant landscape, because I tell you what, this one is not going away. This one is here to stay, this stink bug.
Question.
Yeah.
How do they get into homes?
They're diabolically clever. I think they can pass right through walls like Houdini. Did you ever see that trick Houdini where it went right through a wall? That's what they do.
I've noticed maybe half a dozen the last 6 months in my home. I have an 1830s home, and they were on the second floor.
They're going to love you. Any crack and crevice, what's good for stink bug management, and let me jump over to that very quick and I'll let you get out of here.
15 more minutes, I was a little premature.
Oh, I had 15?
15 more from now.
15 more from now? Are you guys kidding me? Huh? Start over. I've been rushing like a fiend here. I was going to say, where did my time go today? All right, let me, do you guys mind if I take a few, sorry? Give me, you'll get it, all right. Okay, let me slow you down a little bit, and I'll have some time for questions, which will be good, because this is going to be important, guys. And I'm saying this from the position of arboriculture, where we don't really know the impact yet. But for you guys that are just human beings, how many of you guys are human beings here today? How many aren't? Good. I know in any crowd about 30% are aliens. One way to tell is like when the second head pops out and looks around. All right, that's one way. But if you volunteer it, yeah. So you're photosynthesizing right now? Dude. Okay. These are going to affect everybody. I think they're going to touch everybody. I've got them in my house. They first showed up at my place in Columbia, Maryland in '05. And I kind of, said, look, this is going to be a big issue, I think. And this year, it just hit the fan. I mean, I have had thousands of phone calls and site visits about stink bugs coming in people's houses. And people find these quite egregious when they come indoors. I was only kidding about being diabolically clever. And in an old house where you've got a stone foundation maybe, you got cracks in your chinking, maybe between your sill plate and your top row of stone, get your foam out, buddy, okay, and foam every possible entry point into your house. This is good news, not bad. Anything that's good for energy conservation is going to be good to keep these guys out. So what you want to do is replace your weather stripping, replace your door sweeps in the garage and underneath your doors, where your utility ports come in and out. If you got an air handler and there's a pipe that goes out through your foundation, foam that baby up. Get up into your attic on the gable ends, where your house vents are, winds. They're breeding, and that's the other part I didn't get to. They're breeding in soybean and corn. They crushed our fruit growers this year. In commercial fruit, they crushed them. I had one grower who lost 45,000 bushels of apples this year. I had another grower whose family has been in the orchard business for 4 generations. He says if he has one more year like this one, he is selling it. He's going out of business. He's done. So this is a crusher in terms of its economic impact. The problem for your clients is this thing can migrate. So it's going to be out in the soybean field, maybe a quarter of a mile away from your client's house. When that soybean senesces, it's taken off of that field, and normally in nature what they do is they find a big rocky crag, like these cliffs we saw on the way in here, or in Maryland we have some nice stone faces up along the Catoctin Mountains. That's where they overwinter. They fly to these big rocky faces, they find crevices, and they get in there and they go in there to chill out for the winter. When they're coming in your house, they're not trying to get warm. They're trying to chill out. They're just trying to find a protected place to spend the winter. Okay? The thing they don't know is your house on a nice sunny day in February is going to warm up. And they're going to say, oh, must be spring. I'm getting out of here. So you have this movement into your house in the autumn, and then the tide goes out in the spring. So in February and March, they're all coming out of your attic and out from underneath the siding, and they're going to try to get out. So it's kind of a double whammy. So what doesn't make sense to me, somebody asked me before, can you keep them out with a perimeter treatment for ants? No, they fly. Should you be hosing down the side of your house when you see these things on it? I don't think so, because this is going to go on for a period of about a month. Now, I don't really want to live in a house that's been treated with organophosphate pesticides once a week for a month. That doesn't sound cool to me. Okay, I've already got 2 heads. I don't need a third one. The other thing we don't want people to do is be running around with a can of bug spray inside spraying these things. Okay, I said, some person called me up and they had their magic concoction of ways to kill it. I got hundreds of calls. People would say, oh, these are so easy to kill. I just take 2 tablespoons of Lysol and ethanol and dish detergent. I squirt them. And I said, well, then what do you do? And they said, well, then I vacuum them up. I said, all right, just skip the spray and vacuum them up. Why do you want to spray them? Is this like vendetta or something? What is that? Is this a revenge killing of some kind? No, just get your vacuum up and vacuum them up. And then if you want to go outside and dance on them or set them on fire, do that. But, don't be squirting poison in your house. Yes?
Invasion cyclical?
Oh, no, it's here to stay.
I mean, so there's no showing of where they were overly, what's the word I'm looking for? There was a lot, 20 years ago? Or?
No, this is new from '96. What they say, the guys up in Pensy say that they're actually seeing less problems now. And I don't know if they're really less problems or if people are just getting used to this. Kind of like mosquitoes or carpenter ants. I don't really know if there's fewer or just less problems. But I guarantee you, when they first start to show up in an area, people just go nuts, because they've never seen it before. This year people said to me, what happened? What was different about this year? I said, look. I said, remember 10 years ago when you saw your first hybrid car? You said, oh my God, it's a hybrid car. Well, you pass 50 of them every day. You don't say, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You say, there's a Prius. So it's the same thing with these. We've gone from just isolated pockets to a general infestation. All right, that's all that happened this year.
Does it have a natural enemy?
Does it have natural enemies? Great question. You want to look at some natural enemies? Oh, by the way, this is the ornamentals list. Huge. Lots and lots of woody plants they're going to feed on. People said they didn't have any predators. I don't know where that came from. There were lots of quotes. Praying mantids love them. See that praying mantid? It's eating the head off it. And if you look carefully in the praying mantid's mouth, can you see its mouth? If you go to my website, I've got a great video. In fact, it's on USA Today. If you go to the USA Today website from 2 days ago, you can watch the video of these things. But this praying mantis grabbed the stink bug, it ate its head off, and then if you look in its mouth, that's the leg of the stink bug going down its mouth right now. See that thing sticking out? I titled it, Save the Leg for Me. The guy in the upper right is called a jumping spider, and it's got the stink bug right by the rear end. What a pain in the badootie. Okay, so it killed it from the rear end. Look at that. That thing in the bottom left is called a robber fly. It's got a stiletto-like mouth part. It jams it down into that stink bug. That was sent to me by a homeowner and sucked the life out of it. And the guy bottom right is what we call the wheel bug. Now, that's not like Elmer Fudd trying to say the real bug. It's called the wheel bug. Because if you look on its back, it's got this thing looks like a medieval torture wheel or something. I don't know what it's for. Mother Nature does. I don't. But what this does is it runs around on the tree and it stabs these things. It's got this incredible beak. It puts the beak in and sucks the life out of them. Now, I'm lucky in a given year, and these also kill lots of caterpillars like gypsy moth. I'm lucky in a year if I see 3 wheel bugs. I saw 6 wheel bugs on a single tree. So we're going to have an explosion of wheel bugs now, I think, as these pests come in and these guys gear up and attack it. So yes, it does have biological control. When it comes to chemical control, we're importing beneficial insects. I think in a couple years we'll make some releases of beneficials, which will be cool. Let me see if I have a chart here. You can go to the Rutgers website. They've got a pretty complete list of chemicals there. So there are things that have stink bugs on the label. Most of them are synthetic pyrethroids. So our synthetic pyrethroids, which I'll talk about this afternoon, tend to have very broad labels, and stink bugs will be on there. But I want you guys to think really carefully before you pull out the chemical weapons and start to squirt them. Because, as I said, they're going to come in over the period of 4 weeks or something like that. So even if you squirt the ones and kill some today, 3 days later they're going to be more, and your client may not be happy about this. So think about it first, okay? Okay. I'm going to skip this one. I'm just going to tell you there's a new one. It's called the euonymus leaf notcher. We've got it over in Maryland right now. It's the only place. I swear I didn't bring it in. First started to show up in about 2003. Some people think this is the perfect solution to euonymus japonica in landscapes because it eats them. That's what it does to them. Some people are happy about this. But I guess if you got one of these full of these worms like that, that could make you unhappy. Kind of crazy. They lay eggs late in the season. The eggs hatch in spring very, very early. As I said, they feed in groups and defoliate the plant. They make it look like a mess. We've got a now ever-expanding one, and I see no reason that this one isn't just going to take off just like emerald ash borer or anything else and expand. It was first up in that red zone. Now it's all the way down to Annapolis over to Bowie. So this one's on the roll. And it's job security, guys. What can I say? That's it. I'll hang around here and entertain questions as long as you guys like. I brought handouts on most of these things, so please come avail yourselves of that and enjoy the rest of the meeting. It's been great to be here. Thanks so much. Good luck. Good luck.